Did you know that the cruise industry is worth over $150 billion? That's right. While cruise lines are raking in massive profits, many people don't realize they're paying a tiny fraction in taxes. For instance, Carnival Cruise Line, one of the largest companies, reported earning $20 billion in 2019 but paid only $0.2 billion in taxes, just 1%. So how do these companies avoid paying their fair share? The truth is shocking and a bit sneaky. Cruise lines use clever tricks like registering their ships in countries with low taxes. They make billions while leaving governments with empty pockets. But it doesn't stop there. In this video, we'll explore how cruise lines operate like floating tax havens, how they keep the profits flowing while cutting costs, and why many governments let them get away with it. You'll learn about the hidden prices passengers pay and the surprising partnerships between cruise companies and governments. Get ready to uncover the truth about the cruise industry and how it affects you. Chapter 1. The billion-dollar escape plan. Cruise lines are a massive industry, making billions in revenue every year. But what's shocking is how little they contribute in taxes. Did you know that some of the biggest cruise lines, like Carnival and Royal Caribbean, pay as little as 0.8% in taxes? In comparison, the average U.S. company pays about 21% in corporate tax. So how do they pull this off? It's not just luck, it's strategy. One key move is registering their ships under foreign flags. This simple trick allows them to avoid U.S. taxes, even though most of their passengers are American. It's called flags of convenience, and it's perfectly legal. They choose countries like Panama, the Bahamas, or Liberia to base their ships. These countries offer low or zero tax rates and fewer regulations. It's a win-win for the cruise lines, but it leaves taxpayers holding the bag. Carnival, for instance, is based in Miami but registers its ships in Panama. Royal Caribbean is headquartered in Miami but registers in Liberia. It's a brilliant move from a business perspective but raises questions about fairness. According to a report by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, cruise companies have saved billions by dodging taxes this way. In fact, from 2015 to 2020, these cruise giants earned $30 billion in profits, yet they paid almost no income tax. This strategy isn't a new idea. In fact, cruise lines have been using it for decades. But it's only recently that more people have started paying attention to just how big of a loophole this is. And as their profits continue to soar, the question remains: should they pay more, or are they just playing by the rules? Either way, it's an impressive escape plan that keeps billions of dollars out of government coffers. Chapter 2. The high seas loophole. The flags of convenience strategy is the biggest tax loophole cruise lines exploit, but how does it work? Essentially, by registering their ships in countries with relaxed tax laws, cruise companies can legally avoid taxes in their home countries. It's like parking your car in a no-ticket zone, perfectly legal, but frustrating for the rest of us paying the fines. Panama, the Bahamas, and Liberia are some of the top choices for these registrations. In fact, Liberia alone accounts for over 12% of the world's fleet, even though it's a tiny country. But why these places? Simple. They charge low or no taxes and don't impose strict labor or environmental regulations. This is why you'll see giant cruise ships sailing under tiny country flags. For cruise lines, this isn't just about saving money on taxes. It also reduces the cost of operating their ships. The rules in these countries are much more lenient, so they can hire cheaper labor and sidestep certain safety regulations. For example, ships flying the Bahamian flag are not bound by U.S. labor laws, meaning they can pay their staff less than the U.S. minimum wage. This means more profit for the companies, but the workers and host countries see little benefit. What's even more interesting is that this strategy is perfectly legal under international maritime law. As long as the ship follows the rules of the country it's registered in, it can avoid paying taxes elsewhere. A famous quote from the book, Flagging Out, The International Race for the Cheapest Ships, sums it up. A ship's flag is its passport to the sea, but it's also a pass to avoid responsibility. The cruise lines didn't invent this loophole, but they've mastered it. And while it might feel unfair, it's a brilliant strategy that's kept them sailing around taxes for decades. So, when you step on board a cruise ship, remember, you're stepping into a floating tax haven. Chapter 3. Where the rich float. Free cruise lines aren't just avoiding taxes, they're doing it while catering to some of the wealthiest travelers in the world. If you've ever been on a luxury cruise, you know that the experience is nothing short of lavish. From private butlers to gourmet dining, these ships are built for the ultra-rich. And the companies behind them are reaping the rewards. Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas is the largest cruise ship in the world, with a price tag of over $1.35 billion. And guess what? Despite its size and cost, it's still registered in the Bahamas, paying next to nothing in taxes. Meanwhile, passengers are paying top dollar for suites that can cost upwards of $10,000 for a single trip. The irony here is hard to miss. The rich get richer, and the cruise lines keep dodging taxes. These ships are more than just floating hotels, they're floating businesses. Every drink, every spa treatment, and every casino bet made on board contributes to the cruise line's bottom line. But here's the kicker. Most of these onboard purchases are also tax-free. That's right, when you buy that souvenir t-shirt or fancy cocktail, the company isn't paying sales tax on it. Cruise lines have found a way to turn their ships into tax havens on water. They cater to wealthy passengers who are used to avoiding taxes themselves through various loopholes, and they provide a seamless, tax-free experience. It's almost poetic how well it all fits together. So, while the passengers float in luxury, the cruise companies are floating free of their tax obligations. It's a strategy that works, but it leaves many wondering if they're getting away with more than they should. If you're enjoying this exploration into the world of cruise lines, make sure to subscribe for more eye-opening content like this. Chapter 4. Tax havens on water. Cruise ships are more than floating resorts, they're floating tax havens. Once a cruise ship is registered under a foreign flag, it can take advantage of international laws that allow them to dodge corporate taxes. This strategy, known as offshore incorporation, is incredibly effective. In fact, many cruise lines are headquartered in Miami but technically operate as foreign corporations, which lets them avoid U.S. taxes. Royal Caribbean, for example, is registered in Liberia, which has one of the world's lowest corporate tax rates. In 2020, Royal Caribbean reported over $6.5 billion in revenue, but thanks to clever use of tax havens, they paid almost nothing in taxes. This isn't just smart accounting, it's a well-oiled system designed to keep profits high and taxes low. The numbers are startling. A report from the ITEP found that the top 3 cruise companies, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian, collectively avoid over $1 billion in taxes annually by using tax havens. But tax avoidance doesn't stop with corporate profits. Cruise lines have found ways to make onboard spending tax-free, too. Duty-free shops, casinos, and even art auctions are often exempt from taxes. Passengers enjoy lower prices, but the real winner is the cruise company, which pockets more of the revenue without tax deductions. According to a study from Cruise Market Watch, onboard sales can make up to 25% of a cruise line's revenue. So, how do they do it? Once the ship is in international waters, typically 12 miles offshore, it's no longer subject to the laws of the country it departed from. This allows cruise lines to operate casinos and sell duty-free goods without paying taxes. A line from the book, The Shipping Man, explains it well. Once you're beyond the horizon, the rules change. You're in a different world. In the end, these floating tax havens allow cruise lines to maximize their profits, while governments are left watching from the shore. Chapter 5. The Quiet Partners. Governments that let it happen. It might seem surprising, but governments are part of the reason cruise lines get away with avoiding taxes. How? They often turn a blind eye in exchange for the economic benefits cruise ships bring to local economies. Cities with busy cruise ports, like Miami, Barcelona, and Nassau, rely on the tourism dollars that cruise ships deliver. Local governments know that if they tighten tax laws or regulations, cruise lines could simply dock elsewhere. Take Miami, for example. The Port of Miami is known as the cruise capital of the world, with millions of passengers passing through every year. The city benefits from this influx of tourists, who spend money on hotels, restaurants, and local attractions. In fact, a 2019 report by the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association found that the cruise industry generated over $28 billion in direct spending in the U.S. alone. This creates thousands of jobs in ports and tourism-related businesses, which is why cities like Miami are willing to let cruise lines sail by without paying their fair share in taxes. Governments also offer incentives to attract cruise lines. Some ports will even offer tax breaks or reduced fees to entice cruise companies to use their facilities. According to Cruise Industry News, some Caribbean countries have agreements with cruise lines that allow them to pay minimal taxes in exchange for regular stops at their ports. This benefits both the cruise lines and the local economies, but it also means that governments are often complicit in helping cruise lines avoid taxes. A famous quote from Seasteading, "How Floating Nations Will Restore the Environment," sums it up. In a world where borders mean less, governments become negotiators, not rulers. This is especially true with cruise lines, where governments are more interested in the economic boost than enforcing strict tax regulations. The result is a cozy relationship where both sides win, except for taxpayers. If you found this exploration of cruise lines intriguing, don't forget to subscribe for more insights and revelations about the hidden truths of industries that shape our world.